Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sairam and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 11th February 2016. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering our most humble pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. As always, this is Prem from Team Radio Sai, and with me is Brother Sai Prakash. We're here to continue the episodes of Shravanam Mananam, the season 2. As we said, this is the 1991 summer course series. The last time around, we did the 1990 summer course series. And as a response to the number of people who wrote to us saying that we would love to have this program continue, we're so grateful to all of them who've given us this encouragement. We're back here and we're still going to the first discourse in that series. The name of the discourse is End of Education is Character. And those of you who would like to have a script of that discourse, as we mentioned before, you can go to sssbpt.info, and there is a section where all the summer course discourses are available. You can go up to the 1991 series. We are in the discourse number 1. So before we quickly summarize the points which Swami made in this discourse and go on to play the remaining 2 clips to complete this discourse, I invite Brother Sai Prakash. Sairam.
Sairam Prem. Yes, this is the first discourse in the series of discourses that Swami gave in 1991, and he's addressed it mainly to students, as all the discourses are. But the first one is on character and education. It is almost as if it is a prerequisite for what Swami is going to bring out in the rest of the discourses. As we mentioned earlier, topic that Swami is going to deal with is the Upanishads. This is like a preparatory, this is like an appetizer before the main course. He says that character is essential. If you want to take up any spiritual path, character is absolutely essential.
If we are just reading a discourse, probably if we are just listening to the discourse, we might not go through it so systematically. But I mean, doing a program like this and having the necessity of doing a summary, when you look at Swami's discourse, the way he has progressed in that is so beautiful, almost like a theoretical research paper.
Yes.
Because in the first part of that discourse, the statement which Swami makes is about education and science has progressed. But at the same time, narrow-mindedness and insecurity has increased.
Correct.
And in a way, Swami is saying that is the problem. Okay, That is the situation as it is. It's almost like the description of the issues as they stand.
Right.
And then Swami goes on to say, what is the reason for that? In a sentence, if I'd like to summarize what Swami says, it is when you follow the process, forgetting the purpose.
Okay.
And that's where all the issue starts from. And then that beautiful quote which Swami gives, we've heard many times from Swami, education without character, science without human values, and politics without ethics. In a way, if you see these couplets, these pairs are actually like education is the process, character is the purpose. Science is the process, science is the tool which you use. And the welfare of humanity and, as we discussed last time, to create a fertile field where people are self-sufficient so they can progress towards higher values in life.
Correct.
But that is not happening. That happens again when science and human values is divorced. And then Swami says politics without ethics. The whole idea of politics, the whole idea of a democracy, the whole idea of a government is so that there is equal opportunity for everybody, so that everybody who has a voice and who does not have a voice has the right opportunity. When you remove ethics from politics, and it's just a disaster. In the first part, what is the problem? In the second part, what is the cause? And the third part, Swami says, how can you handle this?
Correct.
And Swami goes on to say it is like through the right kind of education.
Yes.
And under this, when I was just putting it down till what we've come so far, there are about 8 points.
Okay.
Swami says, if you make these changes in the current form of education, you can deal with this problem.
Wow.
Swami says that, when you teach your children emphasize the importance of values more than cleverness.
Correct.
That is one thing which Swami points out. The other is, can you teach them to develop unity of thought, word and deed?
Okay.
Can your education inculcate that? Then the ability to put education and job apart.
Yes.
As we said, that is one thing. And the other thing is, can you teach them the importance of sealing on desires? The importance of living within limits. And then Swami says to inculcate patriotism.
Yes.
That is a very, very easy way of bringing these values into education. And from patriotism, the desire to serve others.
Correct.
Where, Swami says from I to we. And then Swami says that you should, a touchstone for seeing whether education is doing what it's supposed to do, keep asking yourself, is education leading to broad-mindedness and selflessness?
Right. Very true.
And the final point, Swami says that education must lead to self-enquiry.
Yes.
If you're able to teach your students to stop and ask them these deeper questions of existential questions, then education is begin to do what it's supposed to do.
Very true. In fact, there are some very interesting videos on YouTube where we have philosophers and doctors who have taken on to metaphysics,
right,
and to deeper understanding of the human psyche, giving talks in Stanford, Harvard and many reputed institutions. Because by and large, I think people are slowly getting to realize and understand and accept that there is a dimension which we are not able to comprehend as yet.
Right. And I was just listening to a talk sometime, I think yesterday or something, where there's a reference made to a quote by Vivekananda. He said, the difference between a normal person and a Mahatma or Mahapurusha or somebody who has reached a state of excellence is only concentration. Okay. He says concentration is the only thing. So one of these monks from the Ramakrishna order was giving a lecture in the IIT campus, and he was speaking about this inherent strength in everybody, concentration, and how you can improve it. And a way of progressing from the state where you are to a higher state is by improving your concentration. So one of the IIT professors, he came up to him and he said, it's a very nice talk and you are true that everybody here, what makes them stand apart is concentration. But he said, I'm disillusioned with my work.
Okay.
And he says, why are you? Because you're getting the best of the best students. So he says, see, here is a system which kind of encourages concentration, which kind of sieves the best in terms of concentration from the rest. But I'm seeing increasingly these students going out, we are only creating people who are better equipped to serve themselves.
Oh.
And he said, so many of them I see, they go out, they don't even turn back to take care of their parents.
Selfishness at the heart of it.
Right. So he says, I'm so disillusioned with this system because we are only creating, if concentration is everything, then there is something lacking. We are not giving them that, selflessness which is needed.
Yeah, that's one of the points. Cleverness is not as important as values, because if you are really clever and you're able to come up in life, there's nothing wrong with it. But as long as it's not coupled with values, then it's going to have its own effects.
Right.
I think that's a very beautiful summary of what Swami has spoken thus far. And one or two points that Swami made towards the end of the clip last time, there was a mention of brahmacharya and how he correlated that with self-satisfaction, then self-sacrifice, and then self-realization.
Right.
How he correlated brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyasa to that. Then further Swami goes on to say that there is nothing wrong with science, but what is wrong is the way it is being misused.
Right.
And he says there is science everywhere, but he says without the support of spirituality, science is blind and crippled. But then again, there is this beautiful statement which Swami makes. He says science is incomplete because it does not encompass the mind and the Atma. So that was a very important statement. You can tend to think of the mind as two parts, possibly the lower mind and the higher mind. What science is catering to today, if I may say so, is more to the lower mind, which has the senses and which has, Medha Shakti, possibly memory, sharp memory, and yes, concentration as well. And then, analysis and then logical thinking. All that could possibly brought in the lower mind. And science is catering beautifully to that. But possibly the higher mind is an inspired mind. And it goes beyond logic. For example, music, for example, art. There are beautiful documentaries which speak of modern art. And it's always fascinated me when I look at these documentaries. It's not easy. The way the artists look at it, the way what inspires the artist to do a piece of modern art is, it's very inspiring. Because, yes, it has reached a level of abstract depiction which is not able to completely communicate what is in the heart of the artist. But these are levels beyond the, lower mind, as I would say. And they take you closer towards what metaphysics and what the soul experiences possibly.
Right. I think it's very clear from what Swami is saying here, the basic requirement to go into that higher level of intelligence or higher level of using of the mind is, that was what education was meant to do. Because whenever I think of it, I'm reminded of that, the way Swami would so emphatically say that from the discourse table. Saying that, your stomach is so small.
Okay.
So repeatedly Swami would say, Inta undi, your stomach is so small. How much do you need to fill it? I think Swami was giving us a sense of very strong empowerment through that. You're saying that, what you need to sustain this body, this life is very little. Why do you want to use all your intelligence, cleverness and your discrimination only for that purpose?
Yeah.
The moment you're empowered with that feeling that I can anyway, manage, you're freed from, these petty desires and these petty, existential things required to keep yourself alive.
In fact, there's a beautiful incident in my own life that comes to my mind. And, looking at it in this angle of cleverness versus values or truth, whatever, it's kind of interesting because I had completed my master's and I was waiting for Swami to give me an opportunity to work. A few months had passed, and then one of those days when Swami had called us, a few of us, and Swami looked at me and he said, you wanted to do some higher studies, you wanted to go for medicine, what happened to all that? For a second I just paused and I said, see, what is my aim? What do I want to do? Even now I'm really strong about staying and serving Swami. That is what is in my heart and in my mind. So I told Swami, I gave a clever answer. I thought I was very clever. I said, Swami, I am ready to study anything in order to stay with you. Swami said, what about your studies? What about what you want, your higher studies, education? What are you going to do? I said, Swami, I'm ready to study anything in order to stay with you. And I thought, wow, what an answer I have given. Then with a smile, Swami looked and said, without any delay, Swami to undataniki chadu avasrama, he asked. Means, do you need studies to stay with Swami? That statement, it just comes back. It comes back all the time. He's telling, like, your secular studies mean nothing. That applies to Swami within. You don't need to go to him through your education. You may be a PhD, you may be anybody, but that is not required to go closer to God. What is required is what you have learnt.
Absolutely. If anything, it only seems to be taking you away from that.
Very
going by the examples. But I think that was a beautiful opportunity we all had because,
yes.
Now when probably talking to people of our same age, when you tell them that, I've completed an MSc in maths, MSc in physics or chemistry, in the outside world, people don't do a master's if you're not serious about the subject.
Is it?
Right. You do a BSc and probably you go on to an MBA or you go on to an engineering degree or MS or something like that. I mean, if you don't do a master's and you don't, we have one of our brother here who has done MPhil and he's come and working in the radio side, Chandu Vijay.
Yes.
For us, it was nothing, odd about it because we were only thinking 3 more years with Swami, 2 more years with Swami,
That's right.
1 more year with Swami, diploma in Indian culture, 1 more year as a student. It became like that. So, as you said, though we were pursuing education, the greatest value that education had was it was giving us a few years in proximity to Swami. And as you said, when we have seen that with many students, when Swami gives that opportunity, either you be with me or you study. That choice becomes so easy. We say, Swami, we're studying only to be with you. If you say no need to study, then we'll be all the more happy.
So, by putting himself in a position, in a place where you can get proximity to him, he shows how much. Yeah, but at the same time, if you're not a student, you won't get this opportunity.
Right.
Yes, it is important, but to what extent it's important? There is balance in everything. I think that's what Swami really showed us in our years as students, that yes, you score well in your education, you are rewarded. Swami blesses you, is very happy with you. He wants everybody to score well, but that's not the end of everything. It doesn't mean that a person who's not doing well in his academics is no good at all.
Absolutely. How many times you've heard Swami coming and saying, how much have you got in my subject? Some
Exactly.
would say,
And
I'm not bothered about your O grade in your academics.
As Professor Venkatraman was saying, one of those years, I think Professor Sharaf was the Vice Chancellor or Professor Sampath, I'm not sure who.
Okay.
And there was a NAC committee, or there were people from the Center Education Board who had come, and they were absolutely impressed with our university and the curriculum and the way students were behaving, and they were so inspired. So he came very happy to Swami and he said, Swami, they are saying that ours is an ideal university and all. Then Swami looked at him and said, did I say that? Yes, they may say that, but I have to say that. You need to work for that.
Absolutely. So shall we move to the next clip
Yes.
in this discourse, hoping that we will complete this discourse today. So this will be the 6th clip in that discourse.
Okay.
మన కాన్షియన్స్ తృప్తికరంగా మనం పోవాలి.
You should go on the base of your
కానీ
own.
ఈనాటి విద్యావంతులందరూ కూడాను కాన్షియస్ తృప్తిగా చేస్తున్నారు.
But today's educated man is satisfying only conscious, only conscious.
నాట్ కాన్షియస్, కాన్షియన్స్.
But what is required is
ఈ కాన్షియస్నెస్ నుంచి రావాలి.
This conscience has to come from consciousness.
ఈ కాన్షియస్నెస్ సర్వత్రా నిలిచి ఉంటుండాలి.
This consciousness is all
అదే
pervading.
నిజమైనటువంటి యొక్క శక్తి తత్వము, చైతన్యం.
That is real consciousness, real power.
దానిని ఎవ్వరు కూడాను మార్చలేరు.
No one can change
ఏ
that.
సైంటిస్ట్ కూడాను దాన్ని అర్థం చేసుకోలేరు.
No scientist can understand that in full.
తనను తానే అర్థం చేసుకోలేనటువంటి సైంటిస్టు ఇంక దీనిని ఎట్లా అర్థం చేసుకోగలరు?
A scientist who cannot understand himself, how can he understand?
అన్నిటినీ వసూలు చేసుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నారు.
They are trying to exercise control over all
కానీ
the
తన
things.
సెన్సెస్ ను మాత్రం తాను కంట్రోల్ చేయడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేయటం లేదు.
But he is not making any efforts to control his own senses.
ఇదే విషయాన్ని స్టూడెంట్ గా ఉండినటువంటి ప్రహ్లాదు చెప్పాడు తన యొక్క తండ్రి అయినటువంటి హిరణ్యకశిపునకు.
Prahlada in his student life itself told his father the same thing.
లోకములన్నీయున్ గడియలోన జయించిన వాడవు తండ్రి, లోకములన్నీయున్ గడియలోన జయించిన వాడవు, ఇంద్రియా లోకము చిత్తమున్ గెలువ నేరవు. ఏమి ప్రయోజనం? లోకాలంతా జయిస్తూ వచ్చావు, పంచభూతములను హస్తగతం గావించుకుంటూ వచ్చావు, కానీ నీ చిత్తాన్ని, నీ ఇంద్రియాలను నీ వశం చేసుకోలేకపోతున్నావు. ఏమిటి నీ యొక్క శక్తి?
You have conquered all the worlds and you have conquered even the elements. But you have not been able to conquer your own mind and heart and senses. What is the use of all your success?
కనుక ఈనాటి విద్యార్థులు యందు మొట్టమొదటి ఇంద్రియ నిగ్రహం అత్యవసరం.
Our students today to develop control of senses.
ఈనాటి విద్యార్థులందరూ కూడాను ఇంద్రియములకు దాసులు కావటం చేతనే జగత్తులో కేవలం వైలెన్స్, అల్లర్లు అధికంగా పోతున్నాయి.
Violence is growing in today's world because students have become slaves of their own senses.
కనుక మనము మాస్టర్ కావాలి కానీ నాట్ స్లేవ్స్.
We should become masters, not slaves.
మనం మాస్టర్ కావాలి.
We should become masters.
మాస్టర్ ఎప్పుడవుతాడు? మన ఇంద్రియాలకు మనం నిగ్రహించుకున్నప్పుడే మనం మాస్టర్ అవుతాం.
Only when you control your senses, you become master for them.
ఇంద్రియాలకు వశమైనటువంటి వాడు స్లేవ్ అవుతాడు.
A person who is subdued by the senses is a slave.
విద్యార్థులారా, విద్యా విధానములో అనేక రకములైనటువంటి పెడమార్గములు పట్టడం చేతనే విద్యార్థుల భావములు కూడాను ఈ విధమైనటువంటి పెడమార్గములు పట్టాయి. కానీ విద్యార్థులు ఏనాడు కూడాను దుర్మార్గులు కాదు, పవిత్ర హృదయులు, నిస్వార్థ హృదయులు.
Students are always good ones. Their heart is sacred. They always go on the right direction. But the education system is going on the wrong direction.
ఇంటిలో తల్లిదండ్రులు విద్యా సంస్థల్లో గురువులు మిమ్మల్ని పెడమార్గం పట్టిస్తున్నారు.
Parents at home, teachers in the education institutions are putting you in the wrong direction.
తల్లిదండ్రులకు ప్రేమ ఉండటం సహజమే.
Parents should have love.
కానీ ఆ ప్రేమ కూడా నువ్వు మితిమీరిన ప్రేమ ఉండకూడదు.
But it should not be excessive love.
పిల్లలు ఏ విధంగా పెరుగుతున్నారు, ఏ విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క బిహేవియర్ లో ఉన్నారు అనేటువంటి దాన్ని తల్లిదండ్రులు చక్కగా వాచ్ చేస్తూ రావాలి.
Parents should carefully watch the behavior and the conduct of the children.
ఈనాడు తల్లిదండ్రులకే ఆ విధమైనటువంటి బిహేవియర్ లేదు, ఇంక పిల్లలకి ఏమి చెప్పగలరు?
Today's parents themselves do not have such ideal behavior.
టూ మచ్ ఫ్రీడమ్ అయిపోయింది.
There is too much of freedom.
ఫ్రీడమ్
now.
ఉండాలి, కానీ ది ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ విజ్డమ్ ఇస్ ఫ్రీడమ్, ది ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ కల్చర్ ఇస్ పర్ఫెక్షన్, ది ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ నాలెడ్జ్ ఇస్ లవ్, ది ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఇస్ క్యారెక్టర్.
There should be.
ఈ విధమైనటువంటి ఫ్రీడమ్ ఉండాలి. అంతేగాని స్వేచ్ఛగా ఇచ్చిపెట్టేసి ఏ రాత్రి 12 గంటలకో 1 గంటలకో బిడ్డలు ఇంటికి వచ్చినా కూడా వారిని ఏమాత్రం ప్రశ్నించుకోలేనటువంటి యొక్క తల్లిదండ్రులు ఎంత పాడు చేసుకుంటున్నారు పిల్లలు.
There should be freedom. The end of freedom is wisdom. If parents allow their children to come 1 o'clock in the night back from various
ఈనాటి
places,
విద్యార్థుల లోపల మేనర్స్ కానీ, బిహేవియర్ కానీ, డిసిప్లిన్ కానీ ఏమాత్రము లేదు.
one cannot find good manners, good behavior and discipline in
ఇది
today's
పిల్లల
students.
దోషము కాదు,
This is not the mistake of the students.
తల్లిదండ్రుల యొక్క బ్యాడ్ ఐడియా.
The bad ideal set by the
ఆ
parents.
ప్రేమను ఇన్ని రకమైన రీతిగా కూడా పెడమార్గం పట్టిస్తుండాలి.
This excessive affection and indulgence is responsible for the students' state of affairs.
కనుక తల్లిదండ్రులు కూడా దీనికి కొంత బాధ్యతగా ఉంటున్నారు.
Parents are also responsible for this.
అప్పుడే పిల్లల యొక్క భవిష్యత్తు చక్కని ఆదర్శవంతమైన జీవితంగా రూపొందుతుంది.
Students' life can become ideal only when the parents also take care of it.
విద్యార్థులారా, మీరు విద్యావంతులై చక్కని ఆదర్శాన్ని ప్రపంచంలో వెళ్లి అన్ని రంగముల యందు కూడాను మీ యొక్క ఆదర్శాన్ని అభివృద్ధి గావించాలి.
Dear students, you should get proper education, enter into different fields of life and hold out ideals and examples.
కేవలం డిగ్రీ నిమిత్తమై మీరు చదవనక్కర్లేదు.
You should not undertake education for the sake of degree.
కేవలము మన హృదయ తృప్తి కోసం చేయాలి.
Education should be for our own.
విద్య డిగ్రీల కొరకను వెర్రివీడి
Thinking that you are educated,
సేవకా వృత్తికై మీరు జంకబోక
do not crave for a job.
ప్రాకృతే సేవలను మీరు సల్పవలయు.
You should undertake service of the society,
దేశ సేవ, దేశ సేవ, దేశ సేవ.
service of the nation, service of the country. This is essential.
ఇది చేయాలి. కానీ ఏ ఇంజనీరింగో, ఏ మెడికల్లో, ఏ విధమైన సైన్స్ పాస్ అయిన తక్షణమే ఏ ఇరానో, ఏ ఇరాకో, ఏ అమెరికానో, ఏ జర్మనీ, జపానో ఎక్కడికో బయలుదేరిపోవటం ఇది చాలా దేశద్రోహం.
It is a treachery for the nation if immediately after your education going for engineering and medical houses, medical courses in various countries like Iran, Iraq, Germany or
పుట్టి పెరిగి మిమ్మల్ని అభివృద్ధి గావించినటువంటి భారతదేశానికి సేవ చేయాలి.
serve the nation which has given birth to you.
ఏ దేశం వారు ఆ దేశానికి సేవ చేయాలి.
Each country should be served by its own
కన్న
people.
తల్లిని వదలి ఎవరినో మనం తల్లి అని ఆశించడము ఇది ఏమాత్రమైన సరైన ఆధారమా?
Is it a good thing to give up one's own mother and calling another one as mother just because
జననీ జన్మభూమస్య స్వర్గాధిపి గరియేసి. మన జన్మభూమి, మన మాతృదేశము మనకు సరైనటువంటి యొక్క సేవకు సరైన ఆదర్శాన్ని అందించాలి.
mother and mother country are greater than heaven?
ఈ చదువుకున్న పిల్లలందరూ కూడా విదేశాలకు పోతుంటే దేశం యొక్క పరిస్థితి ఏమిటి?
If all the people who are educated go to other countries, what would happen to our own nation?
అక్కడికి పోయి మీరు లక్షలు సంపాదించేదానికంటే ఇక్కడ మీరు వందలు సంపాదించండి, అదే మీకు శాంతి.
Going there and earning lakhs of rupees is in no way better than earning even hundreds of rupees in your own
అదే మీ
land.
యొక్క మొరాలిటీ.
That is
అదే
true morality.
మనీ కమ్స్ అండ్ గోస్, మొరాలిటీ కమ్స్ అండ్ గ్రోస్. అది మీరు పెంచుకోవాలి.
You have to understand this. This is the meaning of money comes and goes, morality comes and grows.
విద్యార్థులారా, మీరు జాతీయతా గుణములను మీరు పెంచుకోవాలి.
Dear students, develop the national character.
మన దేశాభిమానమే మనకు లేకపోతే ఇంక దేహాభిమానం ఎట్లా వస్తుంది?
If you don't have love for your own nation, how can you love
దేహము
yourself?
దేశము రెండు బింబ ప్రతిబింబాలు.
The physical body and the motherland are the object and its reflection.
మనం ఎవరు ఏ దేశమునకు పోయి మనం వెచ్చమెత్తనక్కర్లేదు.
There is no need for going to some other foreign country and beg
ఎన్న
there.
భారతే తన్న భారత అనింది భారతదేశం యొక్క సాంప్రదాయం. భారతదేశంలో లేనటువంటిది ఇంకా ఏ దేశంలో కూడా లేవు.
What you don't get in Bharat, you cannot get anywhere else.
కేవలం ఇది దేశాభిమానములకు దురభిమానం కాదు.
Loving one's own
ఉన్న
motherland,
సత్యం అది.
loving one's own motherland is a
ప్రాచీన కాలం నుండి అన్ని దేశములకు కూడా అన్ని విద్యలో అభివృద్ధి గావించినటువంటి భారతదేశమే.
It is the Bharat which has developed all types of education in various fields in all the countries of the
కానీ
world.
ఏనుగెట్టుల తనబల మెరుగలేదు అట్టులైనారు మన భారతీయులు నేడు.
Today's Bharatiyas are like the elephant which does not know its own inherent strength.
తన శక్తిని తాను గుర్తించుకొనలేక చిన్న మావుటవాడు ఒక చిన్న అంకుశం చూపిస్తే అణిగిపోతుండాది ఏనుగ.
Elephant not recognizing its own strength is being controlled by its master by merely showing
అదే
a
విధంగానే
piece of iron.
విదేశం యొక్క అట్రాక్షన్ మనం బానిసలైపోయి మన యొక్క నిజమైనటువంటి శక్తిని మనం కోల్పోతున్నాం.
We are attracted by the money and the glamour of the foreign countries. We are forgetting our own motherland. our own
అట్రాక్షన్ మనకు
strength.
అక్కర్లేదు.
We should not care for this attraction.
కేవలం ఏ విధమైనటువంటి ఒక ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ మనకు అక్కర్లేదు.
We don't care for the information
మనకు
either.
మనమే ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్ కావాలి.
We should transform ourselves.
మన హృదయాలను మనం మార్చుకోవాలి.
We should transform our own hearts.
అదే ఆధ్యాత్మికానికి లౌకికానికి ఉండినటువంటి వ్యత్యాసం.
That is the difference between spirituality and secular.
That was the clip, and you just can't help but imagine Swami standing there and
Exactly, the power, the involvement,
power,
the
my
conviction, the energy, that importance that Swami is giving to patriotic
Right.
fervor.
I think I mentioned this before once. I remember in Trai Vrindavan when Swami spoke, you could see that Swami was pumped up, and at one point Swami was beating his chest and said, "We are Indians." With the vigor with which he said, that's what beats us. When you talk of patriotism is love for your country, and the country is a variable. It could be anything. You could be in India, you could be in China, Pakistan, wherever you are, you can have patriotism. But here is Swami, who had all the choice that he could have picked any country,
Right.
and he picks India and says, "We are Indians. Be proud that we are Indians." It really means that it's such an opportunity to be born in this country, or even to be associated with this country, because so many people in the ashram who are from other countries who've taken up Indian citizenship and changed their names, and they're living in the ashram. That is the value they give to
Swami's
associating
word. Yeah.
themselves, as you said, Swami's word, right?
Just thinking of this, many people who go abroad, they kind of justify it by saying, we don't get enough opportunities here in our country, in India. Our talent is not recognized. We don't get the right platform. We don't get the amount of money and this and that. Mostly it's about opportunities, and mostly it's about the breaks that they're looking for. So I was just trying to put the two things together. Here is Swami who is saying that don't leave your country, even if you don't get as much money as you would get abroad. And if somebody is saying that I'm going there for the opportunity that is there, is he right or is he wrong? The only way you can, put these two together is the spirit in which you do your action. Suppose I am doing an action. I think that yes, being in India and doing work in India and serving my motherland is important. That takes the first priority. Everything else follows after that. So when I do that work, I have to do that work with absolutely no results in mind. I may not get the kind of results I may get if I do the same kind of work abroad. So I just felt it's like a loop.
Very true. It's just that just being in India does not permit you to gloat in pride based on what Swami is selling here. Because as you said, the idea is, Swami is saying, why don't you serve your country by being here?
Exactly.
If you're going to fleece the country by staying in the country, you can't claim to be following Swami.
Moreover, that word serve the country is so important, because when I am serving, I am not looking for any benefits. Yes, people may say there is an 85% brain drain from India, and where people are going abroad, and that's because of the corruption here, that's because of so many issues in India. Yes, India has its own problems. But then if everybody goes out, who is going to stay back? That is one aspect. And the only way you can justify staying back in spite of all these problems is if you choose not to give them importance. If you still look at staying in India and serving your motherland, whichever motherland it may be, in the spirit of servitude, then you are doing that action without expecting any results. That's a selfless act. That's a nishkama karma. And possibly that's what Swami wants us to do.
Right. In fact, sometime back, seeing a documentary on Iceland, I think that was the country which crashed during the 2008 crisis.
Correct.
One of the reasons why it crashed was a lot of the Icelanders who were settled abroad started coming back.
Okay.
Because here was an economic boom this country was witnessing, which was actually very artificial. A lot of Icelanders who had left the country to UK and other parts of Europe, they said, there's an opportunity here, let's capitalize on it. They all come back and they start investing, and that actually hastens the pace at which the country's democracy crumbles down. As you're saying that we are going to stay in the country, we're going to live in this country, if it is not coupled with that attitude of selflessness and patriotism, saying that let me serve my motherland,
yes,
it's not going to be of much use.
That's right.
And in the beginning of that clip, Swami speaks beautifully about conscience, consciousness, and conscious.
Yes.
And that's again one of Swami's favorite plays. Swami would come and how many times Swami would stand in that portico and ask, what is conscious? What is conscience?
Conscience and what is
and Swami would
consciousness?
spell it out and say, conscience,
Consciousness.
consciousness. So what is the difference? Swami would ask. And I might be wrong, but from what Swami is saying here, Swami is saying that conscience is always there. But the ability to follow the conscience consciously, I think it's a very important thing which Swami is saying, because many times, Swami would say that truth is your nature. When asked suddenly, what is your name? You will tell your name, because telling the truth is your nature.
Yes.
You will not tell a lie.
Right.
Okay. And so Swami is saying unconsciously most of us will be conscientious.
Correct.
But can you be consciously follow the conscience?
Conscience, that's right.
I think it's a very beautiful point that Swami is making, if we have understood it right.
I think one of the discourses in the 1990 series, he explained how conscious is in the realm of the senses. Conscience is in the realm of the mind.
Okay.
And consciousness is the Atma.
Right.
So he says the conscious actions that we do should be based on the conscience, as you said.
Right.
And Swami, since it's in the realm of the mind, it either breaks or it frees. In the realm of the conscience, if you are listening to the voice of the conscience, then you are on the right path.
But I think on another occasion, Swami says that there's that Gita shloka where Krishna says, a spark of mine is there in every being.
Right.
Mamai vamsho
Jivaloke
jivabhuta sanatana. Swami said, what is that spark?
Okay.
Swami said that spark is conscience.
Conscience, right.
And in fact, in the discourses where Swami speaks about those 4 F's, follow the master. Swami always says master is not God. The moment you say follow the master, we think of Swami is the master and we follow him. Swami says no, follow the master. Master is conscience.
Correct.
Because you don't have to be a Sai devotee to be follow the master, face the devil.
Right.
That master is conscience. So in a sense, as you're saying, that conscience is that spark of the divine.
In fact, when you say that, if you are an atheist also,
right,
but you are on the path, you have the qualities that make you a human being, then I think you are on the right path.
Right.
As long as you're sensitive to that.
And then Swami goes on to speak about this idea of being the master when you're actually living like a slave.
Yeah.
It's a point which Swami said in an entire discourse the last time we were discussing
in fact,
on freedom. What is freedom?
Yeah.
That discourse.
There are 2 discourses. Of course, that was freedom, and Swami defined what freedom is. But since he says control of senses, there was an entire discourse in which, in the 1990 series, which dealt with mastery of the senses.
Right.
And there were about 15 points
right.
associated with how do you go about issues relating to the senses. And listeners are absolutely free to go back to that discourse. That's the 4th discourse in the 1990 series. And I'm not going to read out all the 15, but there are so many points, knowing the limitations of the senses, that they have a limit on the matra, as what we told. Then using the senses for the purpose which they were given, not leaving the senses unoccupied. He says, occupy them with what is good. Then he says, equal-mindedness, treating both of good and bad with equanimity. Then one-pointed devotion and complete surrender to God. Then he says, don't allow your senses to get influenced or affected by the environment. Basically, the sincerity of the purpose for which you are doing something, that can overrule the environment. Then he says, give the senses something stronger, either as an incentive or a disincentive. Then he says,
I remember that beautiful analogy which Swami had told about that chariot and a horse-drawn cart.
Exactly.
Right.
Then he says, Pashu or Pashupati. You are Pashupati. Pashu is an animal. He says, those who are driven by the senses are an animal. You become Pashupati. You're meant to be that. Then he says, don't justify the actions of your senses by saying to err is human. He says that is the wrong approach of how you look at them. And strive for the freedom from senses, not freedom of the senses. That was a beautiful point. So, there are so many pointers which Swami gave in that discourse about control of senses.
Right. In fact, so beautifully Swami says here, that it's really an illusion. We talk about freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We don't realize that we are actually referring to freedom of the ego, which Swami says is the biggest problem today.
Right.
The ability to show that, I can restrain myself is actually a greater expression of that mastery than by saying that I can say whatever I want.
Right.
And Swami goes on to say that, the problem starts with the parents at home.
Yeah.
That, you should question the children when they are indisciplined. You should question the children, here Swami is specifically mentioning when they come back home late.
Right.
That, parents should have a certain amount of control over their children.
Correct.
Which is something which is, properly fizzling out. Swami is saying that has to be done.
Yes. And, all through the emphasis, the tone, I would say it's the finality of what Swami is trying to convey. It's like a final, yes, this is the cause. He says this is the cause. Because oftentimes Swami has said, yes, when children are pure-hearted. But, it's always the influence that they have that molds them.
In fact, I think Swami had mentioned one of the Balvika's teachers, if I'm not wrong, where Swami said, especially till the age of 8,
okay,
the influence of the parents are immense actually, till the age of 8. And in fact, till about 14 or 15, still there is a very strong overtone of the parents' qualities and characters in the child. So, that need to have that discipline and that kind of absolute control over the children in that sense, because Swami says as long as the intention is in the right direction, you may be doing mistakes this way, that way with with the process, with the means of doing it. But that idea of, let me give what is the best to the child. This child needs character more than anything else. More than freedom, what the child needs is, the right direction and character. Till that age of 14, 15, as Swami says, is very important. Very
true. In fact, after that, Swami goes on to this topic of patriotism. And this beautiful statement which Swami makes, he says, if you do not have love for your own country, how can you love your body?
Right.
Both are just a reflection of each other.
Deha and
Desha. Desha. And in many ways, this is so true. What is good for an Indian is not necessarily good for an American or for a Japanese. Because we are grown and brought up in this country and our bodies reflect the environment, the food available here, the kind of the soil, the bacteria, possibly everything that is Indian. Our bodies have got used to this. It's so important.
A typical example of that, one of my friends were sharing. You have these buildings with glass walls.
Right.
If you go to cities like Bangalore, you would see that. Huge IT buildings.
Correct.
With full glass made. It's such a disaster in a way, because they say it's meant for countries where the sunlight is sparse.
Exactly.
Right? And you put it in a tropical climate like this, what you're doing is, it creates a greenhouse effect.
Exactly.
And you have to, your electricity bill goes up because your air conditioning is more. And he's saying it's a simple thing that, though it looks beautiful and you see cities like New York and Washington and you want to have it here, it is not suitable for your country,
Your offices are also reflecting.
Right. And another thing, when Swami says this Deha and, Desha, in a way, what Venkatraman sir once told us is, when you talk about desires for body is actually permitted, he says.
Okay.
He says that, in one of his talks, he says the desires which are related to the body are permitted. Food, water, warmth, shelter, that's permitted. The most dangerous is the desires of the mind.
Right.
Because sometimes the mind wants things which are actually not needed for the body and for the sustenance of the individual. That's the problem. And when Swami says, the Deha is actually the Desha, you start by taking care of the body. I think the reason why most people leave the country and go is because of the desires of the mind.
Very true.
You don't want to...
Attraction.
Swami says it's all in the attraction. It's not about the need. Actually, it's not in the need.
Right.
And Swami says, Yanna Bharate, Tanna Bharate. Whatever you need, there is nothing that you need which is not there in this country. There is no way you can give that as a reason.
Very true. Then after that, Swami goes on to, beautifully say what's the difference between science and spirituality. He says science is an outlook and spirituality means inward vision. He says that is information, this is transformation.
Right.
So I think that's where we came up to.
So I think we'll carry on to the last clip in that discourse. Yes. And let's see how Swami ends this first discourse in that series.
ఈ సైన్స్ అనేటువంటిది అవుట్లుక్స్.
Science goes on outlook.
కేవలం ఆధ్యాత్మికము అంతర్దృష్టి.
Spirituality develops inward.
పశ్యతీతి పశువు అవుట్లుక్స్ ఏం ప్రయోజనము? ఇది కేవలము ప్రాకృత సంబంధమైనటువంటిది, శబ్ద స్పర్శ రూప రసగంధాలతో కూడినటువంటిది.
Animal always looks outside. This animal life or the external life is associated with the five.
అంతర్దృష్టిని పెంచుకోవాలి.
We have to develop the inward look.
కనుకనే మనము నిరంతరం కూడాను ప్రతి విషయాన్ని కూడాను మనం థింక్ చేయాలి. Is it right or wrong? Is it right or wrong?
We should undertake constant discrimination. Is this right or is
మన
this wrong?
బంధమునకు, మోక్షమునకు, లిబరేషన్ కు అన్నిటికీ మన మనసే కారణం.
For bondage and liberation, it is the mind which is
విద్యార్థులారా,
responsible.
మీ హృదయమే ఒక పెద్ద లాక్.
Dear students, your heart may be compared to a lock.
అది ఏ కీస్తో కూడా తెరవడానికి వీలు కాదు.
It is not possible to open that lock with any key.
అది చాలా భద్రమైనటువంటిది.
It is a very safe
మన
lock.
మైండే ఇందుకు కీ.
Our mind is the key.
ఈ మైండ్ అనేటువంటి కీని హృదయం అనేటువంటి లాక్ లో పెట్టి రైట్ సైడ్ టర్న్ చేసే ఓపెన్, లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్ టర్న్ చేసే లాక్.
Insert the key of your mind and turn it to the right, it opens. Turn it to the left, it locks.
అదే విధంగానే మనం ప్రపంచం వైపున మనం టర్న్ చేస్తే అటాచ్మెంట్, బంధన.
Turn your mind to the world, it gets attached and bound. There is
ఇది
bondage.
దివ్యత్వం వైపు టర్న్ చేస్తే ఇది డిటాచ్మెంట్.
Turn your mind to the divinity, it gets detached.
కనుక అటాచ్మెంట్ డిటాచ్మెంట్ కు మన టర్నింగ్ డిఫరెన్స్ సేమ్ లాక్ సేమ్ కీ.
There is same lock and same key. For liberation and bondage, it is only the
మనం
direction of
అవుట్లుక్స్
turning.
పోతున్నాం కాబట్టి అంతా బాండేజ్ ని అంతటితో మనం బంధనపడిపోతున్నాం.
When you turn your vision into the external world, you are bound by it. Bondage will be the result.
అంతర్దృష్టిని మనం డెవలప్ చేసుకోవాలి.
Develop the inner look.
ఇది
Inner vision.
నిజమైనటువంటి చదువు.
That is the true education.
ఈ చదువుతో పాటు ఈ లౌకిక చదువులు కూడా మనకు అవసరమే.
Along with this real education, the worldly education also
ఈ
can be
చదువు
carried out.
చదవకూడదని చెప్పటం లేదు.
I don't say that you should not undertake this
ఏది
education.
చేసినప్పటికీ నీవు ఒక శ్రద్ధతో చేయాలి.
Whatever you do,
The secret of happiness is not in doing what one likes, but in liking what one has to do. మనం ప్రేమతో చేయాలి ప్రతి పని కూడాను.
you do everything with love.
నాకు ఇష్టమైన పని మాత్రం నేను ప్రేమతో చేస్తున్నా అంటే ఇది సరైన పని కాదు.
If you say that I will do with love only such work which I like, it is not correct.
ఏది చేసినా కూడా నువ్వు ప్రేమతో శ్రద్ధగా చేయి.
Do whatever you like. Do it with love. Do it with interest.
ఏ ఒక్క పని చేసినా కూడా నువ్వు ఇది కేవలం ఒక విధమైనటువంటి ఒక సాధన కింద, ఒక విధమైనటువంటి ఒక అర్పితం కింద చేయి.
Whatever work you do, do it as worship and as
Work
offering.
will be transformed into worship.
work will be transformed into work.
కనుకనే మనం దేశానికి ఒక సేవ చేస్తున్నాం.
We are serving our own motherland.
మన దేశానికి ఒక విధమైన ఉన్నత స్థాయిని అభివృద్ధి గావించడానికి ఆదర్శాన్ని చూపిస్తున్నాం.
We are holding out ourselves as an example for the progress and welfare of our nation.
విద్యార్థులారా, మీరు పుట్టినందుకు, విద్యను అభ్యసించినందుకు, భారతదేశంలో జీవించినందుకును తల్లిదండ్రులకు సత్కీర్తిని తెప్పించాలి.
Dear students, for being born in this Bharat and for getting educated, show your respect and gratitude to parents.
విద్యార్థులారా, మన భారతీయ సంస్కృతి యందు మాతృదేవో భవ, పితృదేవో భవ, ఆచార్య దేవో భవ, అతిథి దేవో భవ అని ప్రధానమైనటువంటి సాంప్రదాయాలు ఉంటున్నాయి.
There are 4 important statements as a part of Bharatiya tradition. Salutation to the mother, father.
నీవు ఎంత గొప్పవాడైనప్పటికీ, ఏ ప్రైమ్ మినిస్టర్ గా మారినప్పటికీ నీవు తల్లికి కుమారుడే.
Whatever great position you occupy, even if you are a prime minister, you are only the son to your mother.
కనుక మొట్టమొదటి తల్లిని నీవు గౌరవించాలి.
In the very first place, therefore,
తండ్రిని గౌరవించాలి,
mother and then father.
కానీ ఈ తల్లిదండ్రులనే గౌరవించలేనటువంటి యొక్క వ్యక్తి లోకం ఏమాత్రం కూడా వాడిని గౌరవించదు.
A person who does not respect his own mother or father will never be respected by anyone else.
విద్యార్థులారా, ఎవరికి వారు మౌనంగా కూర్చొని విచారం చేయాలి.
Dear students, you will have to introspect yourself silently.
నీ బ్లడ్, నీ ఫుడ్, నీ హెడ్, నీ దుడ్డు పేరెంట్స్ గిఫ్ట్.
Your blood, your food, your money,
యువర్ హెడ్
and your head, all these are gifts of your own
ఫస్ట్
parents.
పేరెంట్స్ గ్రాటిట్యూడ్స్ ఇవ్వాలి.
Therefore, you should show gratitude.
ఈనాటి అనేక మంది విద్యార్థులు పేరెంట్స్ గ్రాటిట్యూడ్స్ ఇవ్వటం లేదు.
Most of the students today do not show any gratitude.
బ్యాడ్ పేరెంట్స్ కూడా దాన్ని అంగీకరించటం లేదు.
The parents also are not showing example.
కేవలము ఒక తల్లిదండ్రులు చూస్తే ఈనాటి పిల్లలంతా కూడా ఏదో ఒక విధమైన ఫ్రెండ్ మాదిరి పోతున్నారు.
Today's children consider their parents as if they are friends.
ఇట్లాంటి దాన్ని తల్లిదండ్రులు కూడా అంగీకరించకూడదు.
Parents should never encourage such things.
కారణం ఏమిటంటే భవిష్యత్తులో ఆ పిల్లవాడి జీవితాన్ని పాడు చేస్తున్నారు తల్లిదండ్రులు.
The reason is you are going to ruin the future of such
మీకు అందరికీ
children.
తెలుసును, ఎక్కువ కాలం నేను తీసుకుంటున్నాను. ప్రేమ్ చంద్ మహా కవి.
All of you know Prem Chand, a great poet.
అతని స్టోరీ లోపల ఒక చక్కని ఆదర్శం ఉంటుండాలి.
There is a very important ideal in his life.
అతనికి 2 కుమారులు ఉండేటువంటి వాడు.
He had 2 sons.
వారు అలహాబాద్ లో చదువుతుండేటువంటి వాళ్ళు.
They were getting educated in Allahabad.
ఈ ప్రేమచంద్ భార్య కూడాను నైనిటాల్ కని పోతున్నారు.
Prem Chand was going with his wife to Nainital.
ఆ పోతూ పోతూ పిల్లలకు జాబ్ రాశారు, మీరు స్టేషన్ లో వచ్చి మమ్మల్ని చూడవలసింది అని.
They had written a letter to the children. You can come and just look us up in the station.
కానీ ఆ ప్రేమచంద్ వైఫ్ స్టేషన్ కు వచ్చారు.
Prem Chand and his wife came to the station.
చిన్న కుమారుడు పెద్ద కుమారుడు ఇద్దరు స్టేషన్ కు వచ్చారు.
The elder son and the younger, both of them came to the
పెద్ద
station.
కుమారుడు వచ్చాడు, నాన్న నమస్కారం, అమ్మా నమస్కారం అన్నాడు.
The elder son came and offered salutations. Namaste father, namaste.
ఈ రెండవ కొడుకు ఏం చేశాడు, 2 జోబులు పెట్టి హౌ ఆర్ యు మమ్మీ, హౌ ఆర్ యు డాడీ అన్నాడు.
The second son, arrogantly putting his hands into the pockets of the trouser, he just addressed them, how are you mummy, how are you daddy.
ఏమి నమస్కారం కానీ వారికి గౌరవం కానీ ఇవ్వలేదు.
He did not show any respect or any.
తక్షణమే ప్రేమచంద్ మనసు చాలా షాక్ వచ్చినట్టు అయిపోయింది.
Prem Chand was
ఎట్లా చదువుతున్నారు ఏమని క్షేమ సమాచారాలు మాట్లాడించారు. ట్రైన్ కదిలింది.
He made enquiries, general enquiries about them, and then the train left.
పెద్ద కుమారుడు ట్రైన్ కదిలిపోయేంత వరకు నమస్కారం చేస్తూ నిల్చుకున్నాడు.
The elder son folded his hands and kept looking at the parents.
ఈ చిన్న కుమారుడు టాటా 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 అంటున్నాడు.
The younger son irreverentially was telling
సరే
Tata.
ట్రైన్ కదిలిపోయింది, పిల్లలు వెళ్లిపోయారు.
The train moved, the children went away.
ప్రేమచంద్కు చాలా అశాంతి అయిపోయింది.
Prem Chand was very much upset by this.
చాలా రెస్ట్లెస్ గా ఉంటున్నాడు.
He was extremely restless.
బాత్రూమ్ పోయాడు, తిరిగి వచ్చాడు, తిరిగిపోతున్నాడు, చాలా అశాంతిగా ఉంటున్నాడు.
He went to a number of places, but then he was full of restlessness.
భార్య అడిగింది, ఏమిటండి మీరు ఇంత అశాంతిగా ఉంటున్నారని.
Wife inquired, why are you looking so
ప్రేమచంద్
restless?
చెప్పాడు, చూస్తివా చిన్నవాడు మనకు నమస్కారమే చేయలేదు, చిన్నవాడు మనకు రెస్పెక్ట్ ఇవ్వలేదు అన్నాడు.
Prem Chand said, the younger one did not do namaskar, did not show respect at all to us.
ఆమె చెప్పింది, ఏదో పాపం చిన్నవాడు తెలియదులేండి, దానికి మీరు ఇంత ఎందుకు యోచన చేస్తారని.
She said, after all, he is a youngster. You might not
మరి
know.
బెడ్ విప్పాడు, పండుకున్నాడు. చూస్తే మన చిన్నవాడు మనకు నమస్కారం చేయలేదు అన్నాడు.
He spread the bed, lied down, again uttered. The younger one did not show respect at
ఈ
all.
విధంగా అనేక పర్యాములు ప్రేమచంద్ర చెప్తూ వచ్చాడు.
Premchand repeated this a number of times.
భార్య, ఎందుకండి నమస్కారం చేయకపోవటం వల్ల మనకు వచ్చిన నష్టం ఏమిటి, మీరు ఇంత బాధపడకూడదు అన్నాడు.
Wife said, well, what is it that we are going to lose if he did not show namaskar?
నా నిమిత్తం కాదు నేను బాధపడుతుండేది, వాని భవిష్యత్తు పాడైపోతుండేది అన్నాడు ప్రేమచంద్.
I am not so much worried or upset because it is about myself. I am afraid his future would not be
ఈనాడు
safe.
ఏ యొక్క విద్యార్థి తల్లిదండ్రులకు గౌరవం ఇస్తాడో ఆ విద్యార్థి భవిష్యత్తులో వాడు చక్కని ఆదర్శం అనుభవిస్తాడు.
Whichever student shows respect to the parents will have a secure and a safe and a good
అదే
future.
స్థితికి వచ్చింది.
Same thing
పెద్ద
happened.
కుమారుడు బోర్డులో పాస్ చేశాడు, చక్కగా అలహాబాద్ హైకోర్టుకు జడ్జి అయిపోయాడు.
The elder son passed Bharatla and became a judge in the High Court. of
వచ్చిన
Allahabad.
వారందరూ కూడాను ఆ యొక్క పెద్ద కుమారుడికి నమస్కారం చేస్తున్నారు.
All those people who came to the court offered namaskar.
ఈ
to
చిన్న
this.
కొడుకు అదే అలహాబాద్ లోపల క్లర్క్ పని చేస్తున్నాడు.
The younger son became a clerk in the same Allahabad.
వీడు వచ్చిన వారందరికీ వీడు నమస్కారం చేస్తున్నాడు.
He had to offer namaskar to everyone who came to the court.
చూచారా, తల్లిదండ్రులకు గౌరవం ఇచ్చినటువంటి యొక్క విద్యార్థి అందరి నమస్కారాలు అందుకుంటున్నాడు.
The elder son who showed respect is getting respect from all people.
తల్లిదండ్రులకు రెస్పెక్ట్ ఇవ్వనటువంటి కుమారుడు అందరికీ నమస్కారాన్ని ఇస్తున్నాడు.
The younger one who did not show respect had to show respect
ఇదే
to
చరిత్రలో
everyone.
మనకు చక్కని మాయని మచ్చ.
This is a thing which cannot be changed in life.
కనుక మీరు ఎన్ని చదువులు చదివినప్పటికీ, ఎంత ఉన్నత పదవిని ఏరినప్పటికీ, మొట్టమొదట తల్లిదండ్రులకు గౌరవం ఇవ్వండి.
Whatever education you acquire, whatever position you occupy,
తల్లిదండ్రుల ప్రేమ చేత మీకు ఎంతో స్వాతంత్రం ఇవ్వచ్చును, ఇచ్చినా కూడాను నీవు ఆ యొక్క స్వాతంత్రం ఉల్లంఘించక వారిని గౌరవించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
parents may give you any amount of freedom, but you should show your respect.
వాళ్ళ స్థాయి నుంచి వాళ్ళు మీకు ఆ విధమైన స్వాతంత్రం ఇచ్చారు, కానీ నీ స్థాయి నుంచి నీవు వారిని గౌరవించాలి.
From their own stage, they have shown you that much of freedom, but you should from your stage observe.
కనుక ఈ 15 దినముల లోపల మానవుడు నిత్య జీవితములో ఏ ఏ విషయాన్ని, ఏ ఏ సమయమును, ఏ ఏ సందర్భము లోపల ఏ విధంగా మనము జీవించాలి అనేటువంటి ఒక సత్యాన్ని మనం గుర్తించి మున్ముందు మన జీవితం లోపల తగినటువంటి ఒక ఆదర్శాన్ని అందించాలని నేను ఆశిస్తూ ఆశీర్వదిస్తూ నా ప్రసంగాన్ని విరమిస్తున్నాను.
During these 15 days, you have to learn how you have to conduct yourself in different situations, different times, different places, and make your own life as an ideal and as an example. And thus, I bring the discourse to a close.
And as the footnote in this discourse says, at the end of it, Swami asked the national anthem to be sung.
Right.
And he wanted all the students to participate. I mean, really a fiery discourse, but how beautifully Swami has emphasized just this quality of gratitude in different levels.
Correct.
First to gratitude to God, Swami mentioned in the initial, then the gratitude to the country, and then Swami brings it down to gratitude to parents.
I think that's the first step.
Right. The beautiful story of Munshi Premchand. He's a Hindi poet, I think.
Right.
Swami has mentioned the story many times. It's a very beautiful and subtle point, and I always used to think of this. Swami would many times tell us as students that you have no gratitude. When Swami is very upset with students, enta chesnanu, I've done so much for you.
Right.
You have no gratitude. When I used to think of that, for Swami it doesn't matter at all whether you tell thank you Swami and we express your gratitude. But only reason Swami would have done it is because expressing gratitude must have been good for us.
Correct.
And that's precisely what Swami is telling here. In the words of Premchand, he says, I am not so obsessed with the respect that I should get from my sons, but if he is not able to respect me, it is going to harm him in the future.
Very true. In fact, one characteristic thing which Swami always held at very high importance is the blessing of parents in order for some of the students to stay back and work with Swami.
True.
He would always ask, did your parents agree? Swami, I want to work here, I want to be with you, I want to stay here. What did your parents tell you? What did they say? So he would say, have they agreed for you to stay back here? And he would always say, regarding anything, your parents may have a difference of opinion, you should sit with them and nicely explain. You should never go against your parents.
Right. And going to the beginning of that clip, the standout for me was in the first few lines, Swami has said, how you have to discriminate. Of course, initially he spoke about the outlook and inward look. Spirituality takes you within and science takes you without. And Swami, when you were saying about that inward look, Swami said every moment you have to go within and ask yourself. But sweetly the way Swami said, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it wrong?
Right.
I mean, even if those words, the way Swami uttered it, always rings in our mind. Imagine, that's more than enough. In every situation, if you can just replay those words so sweetly Swami uttered, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it wrong? I think none of us would dare to do anything which is not acceptable for Swami.
Very true. I mean, that constantly thinking, that is what Swami has said. It's easiest if I say, will Swami like what I'm going to do?
Right.
Is it worthy of offering it to him? This action, is it worthy of offering to him? This word, is it worthy of offering to him? Then we are constantly in check.
Right. Then Swami goes on to say about that beautiful analogy which Swami usually gives of the key turning towards you opens the lock and turning away from you is leading to bondage.
The same lock, same key.
Right. The way Swami said, same lock, same key. Saying that everybody is given the equal opportunity. When you talk
Correct.
of the modern democracies, it's not about, communism, socialism is giving everything equally to everybody, but democracy always talks about giving equal opportunity to everybody.
Correct.
If you look at it, that's what Swami is saying. It's the same lock, same key. The choice is completely yours. What do you want to do with it? Very beautifully, Swami says that. And then, of course, that again, that line in English which Swami said,
The secret.
so profound.
Yeah.
The secret of happiness is not in doing what you like, but in liking whatever you do. One has to do, Swami
Yes.
said. What you do, what one has to do, Swami said.
Correct. I'm not sure in which movie it was, but it suddenly came to my mind. They say this is the time where you have to decide whether you want to do what is easy or what is right. So there's a choice that
Shreyas and Preyas. Swami would say.
There's a choice between choosing what you think.
It all flows, in the earlier part, Swami is speaking about being master of your senses. When you free yourself from that bondage, from that slavery, saying that, I'm not going to just obey what my senses say. I think that is when making this choice is going to become easier. And you say that this is right, even if it's going to, harm me in the immediate future, this is right, it has to be done.
Right.
And then, of course, that later part was completely about gratitude towards parents. And very, very strongly, Swami said, and this is again a very beautiful point that Swami said, parents might sometimes give you freedom out of their love.
Correct.
But out of your respect, you have to remain within your limits and give them the respect that's due.
The one thing that always comes to our mind when we talk about gratitude to parents is how Swami visited the samadhi of his bodily parents year after year. On every birthday, Swami would visit the samadhi and then offer a garland and come back.
Always. I think even during the festival days,
Yes.
during Dashara, when Swami would give clothes to all lady devotees, Swami would call Mother Ishwarama first and say, you take your sari. First one would be given to her.
Okay.
In many ways, when Swami is speaking about not leaving one's country, that's what even struck me, because, Swami is not confined to India. Swami is not
Correct.
Indian, though, Swami, out of his love for this country, he said it. But even he chose that, my field of activity would be this country.
Yes.
And he ensured that everybody comes here. And I can't stop wondering at how, when you look around, even now there are some foreigners here with 6-month-old babies, 1-year-old children. What is that pull which brings them here? In a completely foreign land, they don't speak even English.
Right.
But to come here, Swami has really done that.
The choice of his place. If he had chosen possibly a city, he would have chosen a bigger town and possibly a more prosperous country. His name and fame would have gone and spread the world over many decades back, possibly. But this was the most difficult thing. The most, cutaway place. and a valley of its own. How Swami chose that.
Right. In a way, if you look at it, when Swami was talking about opportunity and going abroad,
Right.
what you're talking of is, where will my time get more value? Right?
Correct.
That's what you mean, when you speak about opportunities.
Exactly. That's what you're saying. That becomes your first priority.
Right, that becomes your first priority.
Right.
Probably what you would have to do if you're going to choose to stay in India is work harder.
Yes.
In fact, that's precisely what Swami did. If you look at it, when you said that,
serve with the spirit of service.
Yes, and that much more effort is required, and that's precisely what Swami did. Endlessly worked hard, and if what Puttaparthi is today is completely Swami's effort, and I think that's what makes the place special. When you're talking to somebody, they said, Swami is omnipresent. Swami says he is in your heart. When you talk of an avatar, you're talking about karma.
Here is one avatar who has not gone world trotting. I mean, okay, look at a spiritual guru.
Right, spiritual guru.
Who is, he was told that again and again. And he said, I confine myself to India, to this place of my birth, and to the language with which, I started out.
Right.
So amazing.
Beautiful. And that's why it's so refreshing when Swami once in a while says those English sentences.
That's right.
It's so sweet and so beautiful. And really, if we can just keep in our minds, what Swami said. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it wrong? Or things which Swami says like, the end of education is character.
Correct.
I mean, if as a student, all of us can always keep that in mind, that this is where I need to go. And nothing more is required, character becomes easy and gratitude becomes easy.
Right.
And it's just that when you said those 15 points to control the mind, Swami said one-pointed love for God.
Right.
Nothing more is required. Each one of those 15 points is self-contained.
Correct.
This one point, if we are able to cultivate, I think that would be beautiful. And probably with that thought, dear listeners, we'll conclude this discourse and this episode. Do join us next week. We'll start the next discourse in the 1991 series. On behalf of Sai Prakash, I offer this effort of ours at Swami's lotus feet, and with much gratitude. We have no words of gratitude, in fact, to tell us how grateful we are for this opportunity. Thank you for being with us so far. Happy listening.